Tennessee Informer. Thank you all for being with us tonight. The war in Iran continues, and all in all, if we can trust what we are hearing, the Islamic regime's days might be numbered, or maybe not. Can we really hit them with enough ordnance to make them agree to Trump's terms without boots on the ground? And are the Iranian people willing and able to step up and take their country back? Tonight we'll discuss this and more with Shahram Hadian, a former Muslim who as a child fled to America from Iran to escape the Islamic regime in the late 70s and is now a Christian pastor who lives here in Tennessee. But first, it's time for another installment of the Informer Report. Iran should have been dealt with years ago. While I have my concerns about how the president, every president since the end of the Second World War, has been allowed to take offensive actions clearly not delegated in the Constitution, I have no doubt that Iran is and has been the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world for decades. They have repeatedly stated their desire to destroy the U.S. and Israel, and they believe they have to take action against us to facilitate the Shia Islamic belief of the end times and the 12th Imam. This is not new. So in the big scheme of things, getting rid of the regime is a good thing if we can actually do that without U.S. boots on the ground. I believe there has to be boots on the ground to make it happen, but don't want it to be ours. And I don't think President Trump does either. Many have made the claim that we are fighting Israel's war. That ignores the long history that I just referenced. Additionally, some claim Trump is Netanyahu's puppet. I think that the idea that Trump takes orders from anyone is laughable. He's far too arrogant for that. How much of this war is really about China? China gets much of its oil from Iran, and Venezuela, until recently, was one of their key suppliers as well. What support, if any, is or will China give Iran? So far, they've done nothing but talk. Will they intercede? Let's hope not. And if they don't, what does that mean? Russia is reportedly helping the Iranians with targeting. No surprise, but will they actually get involved? All the munitions that won't go to Ukraine helps take some pressure off the Russians in the fight for Ukraine, no doubt. It seems this war is viewed either through an anti-Israel bias or a love everything Trump says and does bias, when it should be viewed through a constitutional and national security lens. And that should include a thorough risk analysis of all actions taken, including potential fallout at home and abroad. If things go south, support at home will not take long. The loss of support at home will happen very quick. The Trump administration has not done a good job of communicating the question of why now, so far anyway. That wraps up this installment of the Informer Report. If you have a news story that you want to alert us to, be sure to send an email to tninformer.tv@gmail.com. And now to our guest, Shahram Hadian. Hey, welcome back to the show, and thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thank you for having me back on. I so appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have you. And, you know, as I mentioned in the opening, you left Iran as a small child, I guess soon after the Islamic regime took over. Just kind of, for those that may not be familiar with you, if you could just give a little bit of your story to kind of bring them up to speed on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in Iran, as you said, lived there up until my family fled just a few weeks before the government was overthrown. My dad was in the Army. He was a high-ranking official in the Army before he took early retirement, seeing that things were shifting very quickly. And as I said, we got out just a few weeks before the coup, the overthrow of the government of the Shah of Iran. And subsequently, you know, we witnessed the last 47 years. Of course, the biggest part of my story is that I was born into a Muslim family, raised as a Muslim, but by the grace of God, almost 27 years ago, God put some very bold Christians in my life here in the United States, and I became a follower of Jesus Christ, gave my life to Christ, and I'm serving as a pastor and minister of the gospel, and our ministry seeks to speak the truth in love on all these things that are going on, especially from a biblical perspective and biblical worldview.
Right. Now, how old were you when you left Iran?
I was just had turned 9 when I left, so I was the youngest of 3 in my family. But I, very much remember what Iran was like before, and certainly have witnessed it after. We were forced to leave Iran and leave everything behind. By the way, I mean, my dad was, but when he took early retirement, he had been, and even through his military career, he was a successful business person in Iran, and was doing very well. And we had to leave everything behind and literally leave Iran with just our suitcases because of the urgency of trying to get out in time.
Wow. And I'm sure there was quite a few others that left at that time as well.
Absolutely, yeah. That was the largest, what's called the diaspora. The largest exodus out of Iran was before 79, or just subsequently after 79. There are those who have left a little bit later, but the further that Islamic theocratic regime took control of Iran, the harder it became for people to leave, or if you left, it was hard to ever come back. And if you had family there. So, I still have family in Iran. It's been very difficult over the last 3 months to have communications within Iran. I know others who have obviously, family in Iran. And so it's one of those things where there's a lot of it that's been in the dark, and you try to do the best you can to piece together what's actually happening inside the country. But we know a lot of what's happening outside the country as far as the support of the Iranian people for what's going on.
Right. So what do you remember seeing? I understand you were 9, but that's, definitely old enough to remember some things. And I'm sure you've read some since then. So what happened at the time? We know that the Khomeini was the leader, and I guess he had been in exile in France, and he came in. And can you just kind of go through that a little bit? How things, talk about some of the useful idiots. I think we had a discussion about them earlier.
Yeah.
And how that worked out for them and who they were and what ultimately happened.
Yeah, to take a step back, really it happened back in the 50s, started in the 50s, because the son of the Shah of Iran, who was the second Shah, he was kept in power by the support of the United States back in the 50s. There was a guy named Bakhtiar who they thought was going to take over. Mossadegh, who they thought was going to take over, and Mossadegh had nationalized Iran's oil. The Shah came in and sort of piggybacked off of that they wanted to have energy independence. Anyway, all of that began sort of an uprising, a small percentage of uprising inside Iran, but that uprising was supported by a communist Marxist infiltration that had really been there since the 1940s. But they got behind a guy named Khomeini.
Right.
And during the early 60s, the Shah was leading what was called the White Revolution, which was to basically Persianize Iran, take it away from Islam, because Persians are not Islamic. They were not under control of Islam. Persia goes long before the history of Islam, and about 3,200-year history Persia has. And he was leading this revolution, equal rights. Women became doctors, lawyers, teachers. The economy was blossoming. The aspect of modernizing Iran, education, transportation, the military, all those things. So that was, and as Khomeini rose up, he banished Khomeini at that time to France. But there was always that under element of the communist Marxist kind of infiltration that was there. Well, there was a group I know we're going to talk about later again, but there was a group of Marxist communists in Iran that were called MEK, the Mujahideen Khalq. And this group was working with outside forces to undermine the Shah, right, especially once Jimmy Carter became president. So really things were, there was strife in the late 60s, early 70s, but it was really at the election of Jimmy Carter, that is when my dad saw a massive and rapid shift, because he was a liaison officer with the U.S. military, his role in the army of Iran. And he saw that the people they were sending over, they were beginning to cut off relationships. They were beginning to have a very different messaging. And that's when he started getting a clue. Now, the groups like MEK had already infiltrated, Dave, the college campuses.
Right.
So the college campuses, you were starting to see a push towards socialism and Marxism and communism. The Shah is decadent. The messaging went like this: the Shah is decadent. The Shah is a puppet of America. We need revolution. We need free this and free that. So the best way I can explain it to people is that those useful idiots were pushing for a revolution, but because it was a predominantly, quote, Muslim country, they couldn't have a communist revolution. It wouldn't sell.
Right.
So they sold it as an Islamic revolution to purify this so-called decadence of the Shah, or what they claim was the brutality of the Shah. And they, with outside support, there's no way in my mind that would have happened unless the United States had betrayed Iran. And I remember a speech by Ronald Reagan when he was running for president in 1980. I mean, by that time, we were in the States. We had already come to the States when that election was going on. But I watched the speech years later where he talked about that perhaps the greatest mistake that they've made in recent history was the betrayal, especially in foreign policy, was the betrayal of the Shah. And that led to the return of Khomeini. I think from what I understand, the Carter administration, they had thought that this guy Bakhtiar, who was in parliament, I believe at the time, would become the leader. But very quickly, the Marxists got behind Khomeini. Half the Air Force and military sided with Khomeini, and the rest is history, so to speak. But what's incredible, Dave, is within 9 months, my cousin was one of these useful idiots that was a part of this MEK group.
Right.
And within 9 months, Khomeini's regime, once they had established power, turned on the Marxists. The Muslims always turned on the Marxists. The green will always turn on the red of that axis, and began to arrest and imprison and torture and kill. So they came for him. And fortunately, one of his neighbors tipped him off that they were in his apartment, and he fled Iran, never to return again. This is the foolishness of the left that you see. And I don't think that Iran would have happened unless it was due to that Marxist, communist, and outside infiltration.
So it was still, by that time, it was already a majority Muslim country. And so were they, and well, all Islam is radical, but I understand not every Muslim actually understands what it's about, or actually necessarily follows everything. But the doctrine itself is not salvageable. So the Muslims that sided with Khomeini, were they all native to Iran, or did they come in from other places?
That's exactly right. That's so important to understand, because most people, again, history sells this as some sort of an internal revolution. There was so much outside infiltration into Iran, and Khomeini had to import fighters from mostly Arab nations. Khomeini himself was from India. He's not even Persian. He's from India. There was a large Jewish population at that time in Iran. There was, of course, more than 50% of Iran were actual Persians. And then you have Kurds, and you have Loristan, Baluchistan. You have these different areas that were coalescing in Iran. But they all identified as Persian, as Iranian. And they imported these people. And then their messaging, again, we have to understand, though they claimed that 98% of the people at that time were Muslim, many Iranians, like my dad, they identified as Muslim, but they were absolutely non-practicing, meaning if they're not non-practicing, they're not fundamentalists. They're not observing Islam. And rightly you said, there is no moderation within Islam. There are Muslims that are individually moderate simply because they do not follow the ideology. So with my dad, again, career military officer from the age of 18. He was in the military academy, never went to the mosque, never prayed, drank alcohol, smoked, ate pork. He was a horrible Muslim if you were going to evaluate how observant he was of Islamic law.
Right.
But you ask the man, I'm a Muslim.
Yeah.
And I would later on, when I became a Christian, I'd say, Dad, what kind of a Muslim are you? Come on. So there were many Iranians. So to answer your question, if I had to guess at that time, it is no different than today. Less than 10% of the population were fanatical fundamentalists. But that 10% with outside support and outside infiltration overthrew the Shah and forced him out. And the best way to explain it, Ruhollah Khomeini, Ayatollah Khomeini, was the equivalent of Iran electing Zoran Mamdani. That's what was promised. It is identical. So that's why right now, so many of us Iranians and Christians who live through this, when we see New York and what's going on in New York, we're like, oh, Lord, like this isn't just bad. It's really bad because of what this means. So if what comes next doesn't fundamentally change back to a pre-Islamic 1979 Iran, then it will just get worse. And it will not just be worse for the people of Iran, it will be worse for the people of the world. Just like Mamdani isn't just bad for New York City, he's bad for America. And he's now, the poster child of the Democrat socialists and the Marxists and the communists and the Muslims.
Right.
So that's the best way I can explain it. And today, by the way, this is incredible. 2021, there was a internal study done. So it's old. So I think this number is even worse now. But 2021, an internal study showed that only 32% of people inside Iran identify as Muslim anymore.
Really?
Only 32%. Yeah.
So the rest are Christian or what?
No, there's about 5% Christian. So they estimate that there's potentially up to 5 million Christians in Iran, the fastest growing underground church in the world. But the majority are either identifying now secular or going back to Zoroastrianism, which is the ancient Persian philosophy, going back again to ancient Persia. So you're talking about probably almost 50% of the people now in Iran identify as either secular or Zoroastrianism, which, by the way, from a gospel perspective, it opens them up to the gospel, because typically the process, and it was my process too, Muslims first kind of come to a place of rejecting Islam before your heart can be open to accepting Christianity. And that was my journey too. I first had to recognize Islam as a lie. And I kind of went into a very short phase of almost agnosticism before the gospel was shared with me. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is the truth. Now, obviously, it challenged everything that I believed as a Muslim, but I realized that only one can be true. And it's the Bible that's true. It's the God of the Bible that's the one true God.
So even though growing up, your family they were pretty much just cultural Muslims, it still had an impact on you.
Well, my dad was cultural. My mom's side was very, very fundamental. So it was my grandmother and my mom who would take me to the mosque. It was them who taught me how to pray. So again, my dad, from the age of 18, he's a career military officer. But my mom's side and my grandmother's side, her family side, they were very, very devout, very fundamental, very much. And of course, my problem growing up in Iran was we would go to the mosque. I had no idea what I was praying because you had to pray in Arabic. And I'm from Iran. I speak Farsi. So I never knew what the heck I was praying and reciting these Islamic prayers. And when I would ask them, because I think I said this last time I was on the show, but I used to sit there and go, I don't get it. If this God, Allah, is supposed to be the God of the universe, and he created everything, and he created me in Iran, why can this God not understand my language if I'm praying? Why do I have to speak in a foreign language that I don't speak, as in Arabic? Because Persians are not Arabs. People get that confused all the time. We're Semitic. Persians and Jews are actually blood related. We go all the way back to the line of Shem, from the line of Noah, is Noah's son Elam. That is the ancient name of Persia in the Bible. So that's why you saw many Jews living inside Persia. That goes back to the days of Esther. That goes back to the days of Daniel, where Shushan in Iran is the city of Susa in the Bible. So again, this is the history that people just do not know, unfortunately.
Right. So right now, how much support do you think the regime actually has in Iran?
I think that in reality, there is probably again, if I want to be generous, it's probably that 10% mark. I think in reality, it's probably 5%. 5% to 8% of the people inside Iran are loyal to the regime. Now, that's still a large number. When you have 93 million people, that's still a large number. So I'm not minimizing the threat.
Yeah.
But again and again and again, and we saw it in the latest massacre of the Iranian people, this, starting in December of last year and leading into this year, particularly January 8th, 9th, and 10th, where it's estimated that somewhere between 35 and 90,000 innocent Iranians were mowed down. They exported, particularly the Basij. If you heard this term Basij, Basij, the Basij are militias that they bring in from Iraq. They bring them in from Afghanistan. Some of them are from Pakistan. Some of them are from Syria. So these are imported Arab fighters who could care less about the Iranian people. And that's why, they'll indiscriminately kill. So my concern is, yes, there's a loyalist percentage inside Iran that are fundamentalists and that are strictly Islamic.
And they have the weapons. They're the ones who have the weapons.
Bingo. They have the weapons and they have outside support. As you just played in your opening, we see covertly, Russia continue to support this regime. We see after June of last year when Israel had struck Iran, China giving technology, particularly China gave Iran satellite blocking technology, because in June of last year, Dave, you didn't see blackouts like you saw this time.
Right.
Israel hit Iran for 12 days. You didn't see this kind of blackout. We were getting information outside of Iran. People were still getting access to internet, uploading stuff. This time they blacked out. And this time they had technology, which has been traced back to the Chinese. Because remember, Elon Musk had opened up Starlink.
Yeah.
The moment the blackout happened, he had said, we're going to open up Starlink. And yet most people couldn't access Starlink because they were being blocked. So this regime keeps getting life. I mean, this regime is worse than what is the cat of 9 lives? How many lives does cats supposed to have?
Yeah.
This regime has been given so many lives through 7 presidents, Dave. And you and I talked earlier. In my opinion, 1984, Marine barracks in Beirut.
Yep.
At that moment, Ronald Reagan should have gone before Congress and said, okay, that's it. Yep. They took our hostages. They've declared war on us from day one. They've said death to America. Now they just killed 241 of our Marines.
Yep.
We're going to go to war and we're going to wipe this regime out.
Yeah.
But no, we passed the buck, passed the buck, passed the buck, passed the buck. And enrich, and then Obama came in, removed $150 billion in sanctions, gave them $4 or $5 billion in cash, and they keep getting them lifelines.
I want to go back to that a little bit. So it was actually October of 1983, and I remember it because I was in the MEP station.
Oh, okay.
One day was, and I don't remember what order it came, but one day was the invasion of Grenada, and the next day was the Beirut bombing, or whatever the day prior. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going somewhere, but we didn't do anything. Now, we did eventually get some TOW missiles to Iran, but we sold them to them. And even then, I'm like, wait a minute, if a TOW missile is going to Iran, it should be aimed at something, not sold to them. And that really infuriated me that Reagan would do that at that time, that, they didn't seem to be taking this serious. And, of course, they killed a lot of our guys throughout the years. They killed a lot of people, a lot of our guys in Iraq that were killed and seriously injured. It was because of the Iranians, and we didn't do anything about that.
That's a great point that people forget, that in the war in Iraq, that a significant amount of Iranian militias were inside of eastern Iraq. In fact, they still occupy most of eastern Iraq, are the Iranian militias. So that's a great point. And yeah, you're right. My apologies. Yeah, October 23rd, 1983 was the bombings at the barracks, the Marine barracks. And so, but again, if you pass the buck down, and now the left's rhetoric is, oh, we've started a new war. Hello, what happened to the history? Right. 47 plus years and counting. And and you want to make it seem like this is something new, that this is just unprovoked. Now, I agree with you that we have to rein in the abilities. A lot of MAGA people, they like what Trump does. They don't think about the consequences of having another president in there, where if it's the other side. So I agree with you that we got to rein in the ability of presidents just to, go to carry out offensive military actions. But, one could articulate, as far as the Iranian people are concerned, let me communicate how we see this.
Right.
We don't see this as a war. We see this as a liberation.
Right.
So that's the way that Iranians are seeing this. Yeah. That's why they're saying, please bomb us.
yeah. And
who says that, right?
I want to ask something about, so before June, before Midnight Hammer, what was life like for the average person in Iran that was not part of the regime and wasn't, let's say, on a list targeted by the regime? What was life like for the average Iranian?
Unbelievably difficult, because this regime has destroyed their economy. This is a nation that is sitting on the second or third largest oil reserve in the world. They have minerals. The Iranian people are some of the most intelligent. Again, I'm not bragging. I'm just giving fact. Like they are some of the most brilliant people, the Persian people on the planet. So they have a very highly, this is not Gaza. This is not the, forgive me for saying this, but this is not the, and again, every person is made in the image of God, and I'm not trying to demean any person, but there are backwards societies.
Well, Gaza's got a lot of inbreeding. Bottom line, Gaza is, there's a bunch of inbreds.
Same with the Somali culture, right? The Somalis have a lot of inbreeding. So when you go against God's word and you start, marrying your cousin and your, whoever, that produces, what it produces. Yep. So the Iranian people, Persian people, highly intelligent, but to get a day's wage, water shortages, electricity out, they would have these rolling blackouts, especially even during winter times. Again, the majority of the good jobs are government jobs. So that's why there's a loyalist, because the loyalists get the best jobs.
Yeah.
They got the cushy jobs. They're taken care of. The price of a car, the price of gas, the price of housing, the currency of Iran hitting record numbers. When I left Iran, $1 was equivalent to 7 toman. If you look at the current, in fact, I'm going to pull this up in Iran. But if you look at now they have two types of currency. It's called the rial or the toman. In the current amount right now, I'm just doing a conversion. $1 is now 1.3 million. So when I left, it was 7 toman, which means it was 70 rial. So 70 to $1.
Right.
Today, it's 1.32 million to $1.
So it sounds like the Weimar Republic.
Exactly. It's toilet paper has more value than the Iranian currency and the power. Meanwhile, what has the regime and its assets done, right? They've taken the money, just like in Gaza,
right,
and they've enriched themselves.
Right.
So economically, the situation in Iran is not sustainable. But beyond economic, before June of last year, how many uprisings? Go back to 2022 with the killing of Mahsa Amini, the young woman who was killed.
Right.
And then you have the Woman Life Freedom Movement, where women were pulling their hijabs off. You say, you can kill us, but we're not submitting to this anymore. And you got women in America here every February 1st. It's wear a hijab day, wear a hijab day. And let's put on a hijab and see how wonderful it is. The Iranian people, I guarantee you, Iranian women would come over here and slap these women and say, what is wrong with you, you leftist, idiot, feminist women in America who think that wear a hijab is something wonderful and pious? It's a sign of oppression. And this regime has taught what Islam teaches, that women have less value than your horse, your cow, your donkey. their property, and their sexual property. So life was miserable. Life is miserable. It had been miserable, but more so, December of this year, though this initially started as economic strikes, very quickly, within 4 or 5 days, it turned into, we're done with the regime. And you heard the same slogans: down with Khomeini, down with the dictators, down with Islam, down with Valiat Fari. Valiat Fari means basically the Guardian Religious Council. They believe that it's, it goes along with their 12er mentality that you mentioned earlier, the 12th Imam mentality, where they believe that the Guardian Council of these clerics rules under Sharia. Iran is the one of 200% theocratic governments on the planet. There is no separation of the mosque and the state. Again, most things that people just do not understand.
Explain the 12th Imam for those that might not be familiar with it.
Yeah,
and I don't know everything about it. I know the gist of it.
Yeah. Well, within Islam, there is a very widely held concept, both within Sunni Islam and Shia Islam. Now, Iran is predominantly Shia. It's the largest Shia. There's some small percentage in Lebanon and Syria, and in
Iraq had a certain number of Shia.
In Iraq, exactly. Yeah. In Iraq, thank you. But predominantly, most of the Muslims in the world are Sunni, right? Probably 85% or more of Muslims are on the planet are Sunni.
Yeah.
13% or so are Shia. Now, within both sects of Islam, they believe that there's an Islamic Messiah that's returning. The name of this Messiah is named the Mahdi, M-A-H-D-I. It means the rightly guided one. And they believe the Mahdi will come back at a time, and he will actually agree to a 7-year agreement. You can't make this up. I'm not kidding. And that during that time, he is going to propagate Islam upon the planet. And they believe that the prophet Jesus is going to return with him. Now, where they break, the Sunnis believe he has never come. The Shia Muslims believe that in the 9th century, there was an imam who then they believe had come the first time, and then he was taken to heaven, and he's coming back, and it's the 12th imam. So in the succession of Muhammad, because remember, the Shias disagree with the Sunni successors. They don't recognize the first 3 caliphs or successors of Muhammad after he was poisoned to death. They believe it was Ali, because they believe that the successor has to be blood related to the prophet, versus the Sunnis believe that it could be somebody else. And so from that line, the 12th imam, who they claim never died, was taken to heaven, is returning as the Mahdi. So that's why they're called 12ers, because they believe that 12th imam will be the rightly guided Mahdi. The Sunnis agree he's coming, but they believe he never came. So either,
do the Shia believe that, or maybe both of them believe that they have to do specific things to make him come back, or is he just coming back when he's ready?
No, absolutely. They believe that they must create the environment on the planet by seeking to usher in the Islamic Caliphate, the global order, governmental order, in order for the Mahdi to come. Now, the Shias are a little bit different in that they believe that they can do it through whatever means, including chaos, war, conflict. The Sunnis more so view it as takeover. So they see it as the more they propagate and take over, the more quicker the Mahdi will come. The more areas they take over for Islam and declare to be the upper house. Remember, we covered that, I think I was on the show last time. The quicker they believe he will come. And both of them believe that when the Mahdi comes, he's going to rule the world under Islamic law. Now, they have a problem. And one of the problems is Israel. Israel's in the way, because they believe that the Mahdi will come to Syria, to Damascus, and then march an army to Jerusalem and take over Jerusalem for the caliphate. So as long as the Jews are there, as long as Israel has become a nation, that's a fundamental problem for proving that Islam is correct and that Muhammad actually is the, quote, final prophet. And then the more that they try to remove the Jews from the land since 1948, and they're still there, the more that presents a problem for them. So that's why the leadership of Iran has said that in this regime, As far as, well, they believe that, yes, they believe that that will be a type of a Armageddon battle based upon the return of the Mahdi, who will lead an army upon Jerusalem and destroy the Antichrist. Now, who do they believe the Antichrist is? They believe the Antichrist is the Jesus of the Bible. So they call the Jesus of the Bible Al-Masih Dajjal, the false Messiah. Even though they claim...
I thought he was coming back with the... I thought they said he was coming back with the Mufti or whatever.
The Jesus of the Quran is coming back with the Mahdi.
Oh, okay.
The Isa of the Quran, who's simply a prophet,
right,
who is not God, never claimed to be God, never died, never was crucified, never was resurrected, according to the Quran, he will come back because they believe that Isa, their prophet, was taken to heaven. He never died on the cross, that Allah made it look like, this is the 4th chapter of the Quran, verse 157, that it made it look like it was Jesus, but really it was probably Judas on the cross. He was taken to heaven. He's alive, and he's going to come back soon with their Messiah to tell the Christians they were all wrong.
Yeah.
They're going to wipe out all the Jews that won't submit to Islam, and then they're going to take over. That's what they claim.
But they have to do it. They're not. Their God's not going to do it. They have to do it.
Exactly. Unlike my view that the kingdom only is ushered in by the king, by Jesus himself upon the earth. The Jesus of the Bible, the King of Kings, Lord of Lords. Unlike some Christians who feel that, no, it's our job as Christians to usher in the kingdom, and then Jesus will come back. Well, look, I don't see the world getting more Christian.
No.
I see the world getting less Christian and less godly and less righteous and more evil, as the Bible has said that the days will wax more and more evil men and imposters. So, so their view is that the true Jesus will come back and fight the fake Jesus, and will tell all the Christians, you guys were wrong by following in fact, there is in Sahih Bukhari, one of the hadiths, that's the passage that says that the son of Maryam, a just ruler among you, he will return, and he will do 3 things. He will break the cross, because he's going to come back and set all the Christians right. Oh, there was no cross. I'm not God. Don't call me God. I was not the son of God. God doesn't have a son. Number 2, he's going to kill all the pigs, and that's not talking about the swine animal. That's a reference to all the Jews. And number 3, he's going to abolish the jizya tax, that extortion tax that's for dhimmis, second-class citizens. Because at that point, it won't be needed anymore, they claim, because the world will be subdued to Islam. Now, I have bad news for them. That ain't going to happen. Because the true King of Kings is coming back to subdue the world under his foot as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So Islam will be destroyed. I mean, I have no doubt that Islam will be destroyed upon the return of the Lord.
Now, so since 79, I mean, and anybody who's our age should know this, but it seems to me like there's a lot of amnesia out there. So let's talk about the role of Iran in Islamic terrorism after taking power. And it's not just the Shias that they support Islamic terrorism regardless. It's not limited to just the Shia sect.
Absolutely. Okay, let's start with more recent history. So they have supported Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood since its inception. People forget that the Muslim Brotherhood started, right? Hamas morphed out of the Muslim Brotherhood. They had the IAP, which was the Islamic Association of Palestine, 1987. That morphed into Hamas. So this regime has supported Hamas, which are Arabs. They're Sunni, but supported them in their plight to take over Jerusalem. Of course, we know Hezbollah, right? Hezbollah, it's the army of Allah. The soldiers of Allah is what it literally means. We know that they obviously have been the number one funder of that in Lebanon and taking over Lebanon, which once used to be a Christian nation, right? The Lebanon, Beirut was considered to be the Paris of the Middle East, right? Before they destroyed it. So they have supported those organizations. They support, obviously, proxies like the Houthis. But let's go beyond that. Let's go further out of the Middle East, because they've done training with ISIS. They have the Islamic Jihad. They have so many of these groups they supported. They support Islamic groups in Africa. So they have fundamentally supported the Fulani, Boko Haram. The regime has their hands in everything because, as you said, it doesn't matter Sunni Shia. It matters that Islam is propagated.
Right.
But let's talk about North America. We have known for 3 decades that Iran has had an unbelievably strong presence in Central America, particularly with Venezuela, under Chavez before, then under Maduro. And we know that they have been working with the Mexican cartels for decades. I had a conversation probably almost 20 years ago with a sitting member of Congress, a gal by the name of Sue Myrick, who was from South Carolina. And I think she was from South Carolina. And she was on the House Intelligence Committee. And we had interviewed her one time. And she said, at that time, I said, how many Hezbollah terror cells do you think are in America that Iran is directly supporting? And she said, oh, obviously I can't share that information. So I was just like, 100? She didn't say anything. Like 200? She didn't say anything. So like, meaning she wasn't answering me, but this is going back 20 years. Yep. So we are underestimating that this notion today, why are we fighting a country over there? This is not America first. Hello. They have been the number one country to work with the drug cartels in Mexico. They have been the number one entity as a country to funnel drugs and gangs into America, to destabilize America. They have blended into these gangs.
Right.
Because being Middle Eastern, they can look Hispanic, and they blended in. They worked to help the cartel with their drug tunnels, with their tunnel systems, learning from the systems that they have in places like Gaza or even inside Iran. So this regime, when people say they're the largest state sponsor of terrorism, they're the largest sponsor of propagating jihad,
right?
Even more so than the Saudis. The Saudis are the theological backbone of Islam in the sense of spreading Wahhabism or Salafism, which is the strictest interpretation of Sunni Islam. But the Iranian regime has been the largest funder, apparatus-wise, of propagating jihad and murder across the planet.
And Qatar is involved in that as well, right? They're up there pretty high as well.
Qatar is involved now in the funding. We have to remember, at the time of 1979, Qatar was desert with nothing in it. If you look pictures of the United Arab Emirates, if you look at pictures of Qatar or Bahrain, these places had nothing at that time. It was OPEC. It was it was, again, this is why I said earlier, it was a huge deal that both Bakhtiar and the Shah of Iran were trying to nationalize the oil. That became an existential threat to the globalists, including British Petroleum, the Crown, because they had control of the oil in Iran. And both Bakhtiar and the Shah said, no, this is for us and building up our nation. And that became an existential threat. Because of that threat, that led to the creation, in my opinion, of OPEC. And now all of a sudden, you got this massive wealth pouring into these desert nations that had nothing. And today they have, like with Qatar, they have all of this. I mean, think about Qatar is like this tiny little country. And yet they are funding our universities, our media, and some of our politicians like Mr. Tucker to the tunes of billions and billions of dollars, gifting the president, a plane and all that stuff. So yeah, Qatar is, again, financially, we know that they were receiving members of Hamas, but we know there was intelligence that Hamas was training with IRGC operatives.
Right.
A year, 2 years before they carried out October 7th attack especially with their paragliders. Iran had a direct hand in that.
Right.
And here's what we don't know. We don't know fully. And I've been briefed by people in intelligence before, and I say brief, I mean these are people that are not in the government, but retired,
Right.
who have said there was evidence that Iran had some funding support of 9/11. Now, again, I know
wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I
questions
think
about
they probably all work together against us on those type things. I want to get back a little bit more to the current situation. One of the things that our big concerns is their nuclear capability, or if they ever fully get that capability. Now, some say that Khomeini issued a fatwa against having nuclear weapons. Now, we know that Turkey, which is lying, is part of their doctrine. Should we have any reason to believe that, oh, hey, don't worry about this, Khomeini said we couldn't do it? Is that, I mean, to me, that's just, I wouldn't want to rely on that, but a lot of people seem to think that, oh, hey, look, their religious leader said they couldn't do it. So what are your thoughts on that?
Easiest way to understand. Anybody from this regime opens their mouth, they're lying. Anybody from this regime that opens their mouth to Western media, they're lying.
Right.
That's the easiest way. I mean, I don't know how else to say it in a simpler way. What you need to do is listen to what they say on Iranian TV. If you listen to what they're saying in Farsi on state-sponsored TV, they will tell you what their goals are. They will tell you that no, absolutely, they want to have nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles because of the fact that that's part of the threat factor in their control of the Middle East. Because Iran, obviously, the Shias want to be this is not an argument over Islam. This is an argument over who's going to run the show. That's what the sectarian division was. It's the Sunnis want the power.
Right.
The Shias want the power. They both want Islam. They both want to propagate Islam. And there's not that much of a difference between Shia Islam and Sunni Islam. But to your point, one of the things that was very shocking was why was there no media coverage? Or why did we not hear? And as you said, I agree with you. I think the president and his administration have done a terrible job of articulating. He did a little bit of that on the night of the strikes this time around. But they've done a terrible job of articulating the reasons. Witkoff comes out in an interview. Witkoff, his foolish Middle East envoy, and says in the third meeting with the Iranians in Geneva, the representatives told them very boldly, we have over 400 kilograms of refined enriched uranium at 60%. In a matter of a few weeks, we can get it to 90% and build 11 bombs, nuclear bombs. You should lead with that. Like, that should have been the lead story, and yet nobody covered that. Why was that after the fact? Why are we learning about that after the fact?
So when did that happen? I mean, I saw the interview, but when did it actually happen?
And the third meeting, 2 days before the attack. So the third meeting they had, I think, was Thursday in Geneva, and the attack started, late Friday night, early Saturday morning.
Right.
So literally, but you didn't hear about it
until
after the attack.
Right.
And why was not that a lead story? So and then obviously we see them lobbing their drones and their missiles at all of the surrounding countries.
Right.
So why is that not understood that this is an existential threat to not just the Arab nations, but to the world? And this regime, Khomeini, they're lying when they say, remember I said earlier, 12er mentality.
Right.
Which, by the way, is Mamdani too. Don't forget Mamdani is a 12er.
Yeah. Yep.
He's a 12er. 12er mentality, right? Create chaos to usher in the Messiah. So what better way to create chaos than threaten or carry out? So this is, in their mind, fulfillment. Right now, those in the regime are seeing this as fulfillment. They're not seeing this as a loss.
Right.
When the president comes out and now starts insinuating, I pray not, that we're almost done.
Yeah.
We're almost done. And he's about to declare some sort of a victory like George Bush did after Operation, what was it called back then? Desert Storm?
Yeah. Well, no, that was Iraqi Freedom.
Iraqi freedom, right? A few days in, freedom.
Yeah.
And then Iraq became an absolute failed state and a jihadi. Now, that will not happen to Iran. That will not happen to Iran. Although I am concerned about, you and I talked about this Kurdish thing. You know, where is that going to go?
So let me ask you this. Do you think the regime can be replaced without boots on the ground? Now, I understand I don't want American boots on the ground, even though I think we had reason to deal with with Iran. Forget Israel. I'm talking about we had reasons to deal with Iran. I'm not sure that we had a good plan to deal with them. I'm not sure that, like I say, I don't necessarily like the way it came about, because we moved all of our Navy in there, ahead of time, and then basically threatening them and saying, hey, either make a deal or we're going to hit you. Well, that goes back to we talked about the war powers issue and not having your president out there on his own making it, because this country, our Constitution was not set up for the president to take the lead on offensive action. It just wasn't. A lot of people don't like that. I know there's people out there screaming War Powers Act. Read the damn thing. It doesn't say what you've been told all these years. And so we were never set up for that. It was always supposed to be, the president, you can always defend, you can always deter and repel an attack. But if you're going to take offensive action, well, if you're moving your Navy into an area, where we moved them, that's putting our gut. So that's my concern with the way we've gone about this. But here's the bottom line: they are a threat. We got to deal with them. We're there now. We can't undrop those bombs, and the regime is still there. So, a couple of things. Here's my concerns: can they be removed without boots on the ground? Because I don't want our boots on the ground. Right. You mentioned the Kurds, but here's the other side to it. Their standard for winning is the regime surviving.
Right.
And regardless of, if Trump decides to call it a victory and, we're going to stop bombing and whatever, how's that going to look into the Islamists across the world?
They'll be celebrating. All of the
and they'll be
jihadists around the world
encouraged, not just celebrating, they'll be encouraged.
They'll be encouraged. They'll be emboldened. It'll be a disaster.
Yeah.
It's a foreign policy disaster because if you don't remove the bully, as you said, the victory to this regime for 47 years has been surviving it. Right. And every time they see it every time they survive, they see it as a gift from, quote, Allah. They see it as a spiritual victory as far as inside the regime. Right. Then outside, as you said, the jihadist elements outside the rest of the world, the Muslim Brotherhood and Turkey and all the ones who are watching this, they're going to be emboldened by this. Right. To answer your question, do I think regime change can happen without boots on the ground? I don't think so, because this regime can fortify itself and hang on. So two things are necessary. And the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, has from the very beginning started out, even before any military action was taken this time around. Because again, I said this to you earlier, Dave, I argued that I think that had Israel been allowed to keep going last June, this regime already would have collapsed, because they had been planning that operation for 7+ years. And they had so many intelligence assets. They still have so many intelligence assets, from what my friends in Israel are telling me, that they knew where to hit, how to hit, and how to keep taking. They're good at, like the pagers, right? They're good at doing that kind of stuff. Where the U.S., I don't think is as good. We like big, right? We like big bombs, big shows, the big B-2 bombers. We carried these 30,000-pound bombers, blah, 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 obliterated. We like to have this kind of bluster talk. The Israelis they like covert, behind the scenes, right? So Operation Pager was well, I'm not trying to laugh, but it was brilliant in the sense of if you're gonna take people out in a very sophisticated but yet controlled way where that you only take out that person and not harm other people. Anyway, so I've spoken to people. I interviewed a guy on my show, I think I told you, who is part of the Reza Pahlavi's team that wrote up the kind of the transition plan for Iran for this very scenario, as far as what would the 100 days, 500 days, 1,000 days look like until they can have free elections, which they haven't had in 47 years. They know that without defections, this will not happen. That's number one. So if you do not have and remember, in 1979, had there not been the defection of half of the Air Force and a part of the Army, it probably wouldn't have happened. That overthrow wouldn't have happened. And that was, again, thanks to outside interference by the United States. And my dad would tell me years later that one of the things he saw was not only, again, was his position being cut because as a liaison officer, because there was no more liaisoning when Carter took over, but he said they were sending envoys from the U.S. Military to Iran to then brief, and their briefings included, if the people rise up, do not resist them. They were setting them up for the coup. They were setting them up for stand down. Basically, the best way I can say it, they were giving them stand down orders. Stand down. Do not protect the Shah and do not resist the people. The same thing is got to happen today. That's number one. Pahlavi has said from the very beginning to the not necessarily to the IRGC, but to the military, the army, and to the police. You got to side with the people because you have weapons, they don't.
Right.
So that's boots. So going back to your question, well, that's boots on the ground, right? That would automatically be boots on the ground now, siding with the people. And then they could train and arm the people to have boots on the ground. Number two, you got to have the U.S. continue to target, or Israel or somebody continue to target the regime bringing in assets.
Right.
You got to take, if we can hit narco boats, we should be able to hit convoys coming from Iraq with regime, henchmen, the Basij. We should hit them as they're coming in. So that's all part of the intelligence apparatus. The Kurds, okay, it has potential to be boots on the ground because they do have an army. It's not a huge army, but they do have an army. And we found out this week that the CIA was arming them. Now, I'm not sure how I feel about that because usually when the CIA gets involved, it doesn't necessarily go the way of the people. But the Kurds can be received by the Iranian people as long as they know that the Kurds are representing the effort of the United States or Israel to help the Iranian people achieve regime change. And with the promise that they're not going to try to take over in any way, but they're basically being represented because they're already there. They know the area, they know the landscape. Northwestern Iran is predominantly Kurdish. They've already been training, right? And you don't need American or Israeli boots on the ground if they're doing it. So there's three different scenarios. Defections have got it. Now, I didn't like when Trump said to the IRGC, drop your weapons, we'll give you blanket immunity, because who is he?
Yeah, that's not his
Who's
place
he
to do
determine
it.
that?
Just like he's
not his place.
He's insisting that he is going to have a hand in whoever replaces Khomeini. I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's not your lane. And I guess the mentality is, well, we're dropping the bombs, so we get to call the shots. But I was just wondering how the people in Iran, if they even heard it, how would that go over? It will not go over well. It will not go over well. Right now, the people of Iran are very much appreciative of Israel, both inside and outside of Iran. In fact, there was videos this past week of Iranians going to Israeli embassies throughout Western Europe and Cyprus and Spain. And I saw it in Italy and some other places where they're putting flowers and saying, thank you, Israel. Because, again, I have friends in Israel. They're being shelled, they're being bombed, but they recognize that this is for them and for the Iranian people. And so they're willing to put themselves at risk. Already, I think, 10, 11 Israelis have been killed. So the Iranian people
right now, there's a lot of goodwill. Let's put it that word,
Right.
that way towards Trump, because since now he kept his word,
Right.
he had said, and I think I told you this, I didn't even want Trump to get involved. I wanted Israel just to go finish it.
Yeah.
But once he opened his mouth and said, we're locked and loaded, if they kill
help's on its
protesters,
way. I
we're
think
coming.
he said something like help's on his way.
He said specifically, go into the streets, take your institutions, take the names of the collaborators, because they're going to pay, and help is on the way. So before the weekend of the 8th, 9th, and 10th of January, hundreds of thousands of Iranian young people went into the streets with those words.
Right.
And were met with a massacre.
Yeah.
So then from that point, 6 weeks, they were waiting,
Right.
anything. Like you said, you got this entire fleet sitting there. What are you going to do with it? Is it just for show?
Yeah.
And so finally, when the attack started and when he came out and said, this is your best chance for the Iranian people to take your country back,
Right.
I was like, wow, okay, this isn't just going to be a limited strike. This is actually going to be substantive. But now he comes out and says, we get to pick. Wait a second. Who are you picking? Because MEK, remember the group I talked about earlier? They're
Right.
back in the fray.
Yeah.
They're claiming they're the opposition, whereas the only name that the Iranian people are chanting inside and outside Iran. Go watch videos, folks. They're saying, in akharin nabarde, it means it's the final battle. Pahlavi barmigarde. Pahlavi will return. And they're saying Javid Shah, which means long live the Shah.
Okay.
That's the only thing they're shouting. They're not saying
Right.
MEK. So if the U.S., if the likes of Giuliani and Pompeo and these people in the apparatus of the conservative movement are supportive of this MEK, which is a Marxist Muslim group.
How do they not know that?
Terrible.
How do they not know that?
How do they not know that? Thank you. MEK was listed as a terrorist organization by the State Department before Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama took them off the list. Don't forget Valerie Jarrett's, her dad, I think her dad, right, she's half Iranian.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Valerie Jarrett was tied to the regime. So her dad was tied to the communist Marxists in Iran. So they took MEK off the list. MEK has rebranded themselves now as this National Council of the Iranian Resistance, NCIR, and we have a plan. And their leader, Maryam Rajavi, this woman who wears a hijab, these are Islamist Marxists. They hate Israel, they hate Christians, and they will be, if not the same, maybe even worse,
Right.
because then it would give the appearance that, oh, we have a free Iran. They're saying Pahlavi. That's the only name they're saying. But Brother Dave, I don't know how you can accomplish this regime change from just dropping the bombs. Again, I fully believe the Israelis have assets on the ground. I don't expect Mojtaba Khamenei to last very long. Trump insinuated today that
I think he's already wounded.
mulling.
I think he's already wounded. But here's the thing, though. If at the end of the day, if the regime is not replaced,
Yeah,
or if even if this guy's out of the picture, okay, this guy dies, whatever.
Right.
If we're just playing musical jihadi chairs,
yes, exactly.
then you're not accomplishing anything.
Nothing.
I mean, we're not accomplishing anything, and we've made the situation worse because that's going to embolden the Islamists everywhere, and to include in our own country.
And yes, here it will embolden the Islamic movement here in America.
Yep.
It will embolden, obviously, this regime because, as you said earlier, any survival is victory. Any survival, they see it as, see, Allah protected us.
Yep.
Allah brought the demons to our knees that they believe is America and Israel, the Zionists, right?
Yep.
So, and it will be much worse. Look, I said this earlier. June of last year, they could have taken out the regime. They gave him a lifeline. Trump gave him a lifeline. He didn't let Israel take out Khamenei then, turned the planes around. And what did they do? When the people came out in the streets, now you have the worst massacre of the Iranian people since 1979, and one of the worst massacres by a government of their own people since World War II. What do you think you're going to do next time after this?
Right.
They're shooting at people who are sticking their heads out of their balconies. They don't even allow people. They have people sitting in areas as snipers in the cities, particularly in Tehran.
Right.
And they're waiting for people to come out on balconies and chant, death to the dictators, or thank you, Israel, or thank you.
Right.
This is the level of tyranny and oppression. It is not survivable. It is not sustainable. And this regime will burn Iran down before they give it over. So there has to be ground there, but I think the best way is do everything possible to create the defections. But I said this earlier, if you're one of those guys sitting in the army right now, or maybe lower level IRGC, and you're thinking about, okay, it's time for me to side with the Iranian people, and you stick your neck out there, and Trump comes out and says, we got victory, and they're still in power.
Yeah, you're dead.
You're dead.
And
you're dead.
And probably your whole family.
Your whole family. Exactly. Why would you do that? So they got to know that this is all in. They got to know that there's no going back, that the United States and Israel are going to continue until this regime, and Trump said it a few days ago, where he said, we will accept no deal but total surrender.
Right.
Okay, that's what should be the conversation. We're going to keep hitting you until you declare surrender. The problem is, this is not Nazi Germany, and this is not Russia. These people are ideologically motivated,
right,
believing that their death is martyrdom for Allah.
Yep.
You're dealing with the whole beast. So unless you arm the people, either by, again, best scenario, defections in the army, mass defections in the police, they arm the people and they go after. Meanwhile, from outside, hit outside forces, hit them in Iraq, hit them in Pakistan, hit them in Afghanistan, freeze up all their assets.
Right.
Watch how quickly some of these mid-level, lower level will scamper.
Yeah.
And maybe the Kurds could at least take control of
those areas. Yeah.
Of northwestern Iran.
Yeah.
Take that area over. Gives a buffer. Because here's the one crazy thing. One of the things you will not have.
You're breaking up.
Iranian people. Oh, sorry. Am I okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's one of the things that will not happen. You will not have a refugee crisis. You're not going to see millions of Iranians being allowed, being brought here as refugees. Yeah. They will stay in their country. They love their country. They want their country. This is totally different than Iraq, totally different than Syria, totally different than Egypt, totally different than Afghanistan, where they have an obligation to migrate and take over other countries. Iran wants Iran, Persia. They want the land.
Right.
It's their land. They're not going to leave. They're going to die.
I agree with you.
They're going to die or they're going to win.
The best scenario is, uprising from the people. And of course, in order for that to happen, you say some of the military and the police are going to have to turn. They're going to have to decide to side with the people, and they won't do that if they think that they're Trump is going to just declare victory and leave. So I do not want, and I want to make sure everybody understands this. I don't think we thought this thing through. Okay. Yeah. And it's not, I understand you want freedom for the people in your country. I understand that. It's not our responsibility, but we have already set the stage at this point for something, and it'll be something terrible if the regime is left in place. But American boots on the ground, that I don't think it's going to happen. I don't want it to happen. I hope that there's enough people in Iran that will make that stand to make this happen, is what I hope.
I truly believe it will happen. I truly believe that's the best way forward. I agree from the very beginning. I said I didn't even want necessarily U.S. involvement. I think the U.S. can do things, PSYOP, other things that they could have done more covertly necessarily rather than just dropping bombs. But so I agree with you there. And here's the thing: urban warfare. We're gonna see high casualties if that happens, because already the regime is hiding in schools, in behind hospitals and mosques, just like Hamas.
They did the same thing in Iraq. They did the same thing in Iraq.
Same thing in Iraq. Exactly. But here's the other thing that the president needs to do, because he insinuated today, I think it was today, that because he commented on Mojtaba Khamenei, the son being elected by the Supreme Council. And please, folks, understand, this is not the Iranian people electing this fool. This is this 88-member council, the clerics, that half of them are dead, that elected this guy who's not even qualified. From a jurist standpoint, he's not even qualified to be a supreme leader. They're just desperate because who would want the job at this point?
Right.
But here's the thing. The president should have done, because he insinuated today he's got someone in mind. That's not a very comforting statement.
Nope.
What he should be doing is legitimizing the crown prince. What he should be doing at this point, if you've said, look, the only deal we're going to accept is surrender. I mean, how does that not saying you're delegitimate? We don't recognize you as a government. So in that case, come on, Mr. President, bring Reza Pahlavi in, go against the U.S. foreign policy that worked for 50 years, 60 years to betray the Shah, his father, and do what your instincts tell you and listen to the Iranians in the West who support you. 2 million Iranians voted in the U.S. election, Dave. And the majority in the last election, something like 60+% voted for Trump. There are a lot of
now to clarify,
Iranians.
you mean Americans of Iranian descent, right?
Yes. What did I say? I'm sorry.
You said 2 million Iranians. I know we got a lot of voter fraud, so I don't want people to get the wrong idea.
No. These are American citizens that are from Iran.
Right.
Okay, so American citizens, 2 million Iranians inside the United States, like myself, who are American citizens, because that's what you should have to vote, unlike some of these leftist states that want illegals to vote and are allowing illegals to vote. And now they're allowing illegals to become cops, like Washington State. This is insanity. 2 million are registered voters, citizens. And what we found out is that almost 2/3 voted for Trump, as I did. And I'm not ashamed of the vote. I've had many criticisms of the president. I'll also say when he did something right. But they are systematically, MEK, who Fox News and these Newsmax and these right wings keep bringing them in front of the camera. They don't have the support. They had a rally in France a couple of weeks ago, had 10,000 people. When Crown Prince Pahlavi called for a rally on February 14th on Valentine's Day, 2 million Iranians around the world came out.
Wow.
350,000 in Los Angeles, 570,000 in Toronto, 250,000 in Munich, Germany, where he spoke. It's not a contest. It's a calling. And he has said, I don't want to be the long-term leader. I just want to come and help with the transition of my people and my country, my birth country, and lead this transition to get to the people the point where they can have a free election and set up a form of government, either a constitutional republic or a constitutional monarchy, and set up where they can pick their leaders. Dave, please believe me on this. I've said this from the very beginning. You want to see defections? It's not even the bombs. If Trump brings Pahlavi, they refuse to do it because whoever's advising him within the deep state of this government, he doesn't have support. What are you talking about?
Well, it's probably the same. It's probably the same clown that advises him on who to endorse in Senate races. I mean, let's face it. His endorsements are terrible.
Yeah, same type of apparatus within the. I have a friend of mine who's from Iran who actually served in the State Department under several presidents before she became a Christian. and she was a Muslim converted to Christianity. And she told me this is long-standing foreign policy by the U.S. State Department to turn against the Shah. They still are doing it. And because here's the thing, if they support Pahlavi 47 years ago, they got to admit that they blew it and they made a huge, because you think 90% of the Iranian people, if you ask them right now, if you can go back to pre-1979 with the Shah, with all his quirks and his, decadence and whatever, would you do it? In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat, they'd have that Iran versus what they've had to endure, this hellhole for the last 47 years, this demonic, So, but that's the number one thing that we got to pray. Diplomacy. You want to bring Pahlavi into the Oval Office and say, we are recognizing the people of Iran are shouting this man's name, and this is who we're going to support. We don't get the pick. They've picked, but we're going to support this man. You watch and see how fast you have defections. That's what is needed. And if that doesn't happen, and all these games and all these, codes, right. People always tell me, oh, don't worry. It's a code. Trump's got a plan.
That whole 3D chess thing.
Code. Yeah. I don't know the code. You don't need code right now. You need clarity. Right. You need moral clarity. And moral clarity is because look, want to right or wrong. They have a collective grief. They have a collective regret. My dad was not one of those guys because my dad knew things were bad. My dad was warning people, hey, what's coming is not good. But so many Iranians, why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you fight? Why didn't you stand up? Because they thought it would, just like American, Islam will never take over America. This red-green axis will never take over America. What a bunch of fools. It's already taking over America. Yeah. So the same thing happened in Iran Day where it'll never take over. They can never, they're a small percentage. These clerics will never take over. Yeah, they couldn't without outside interference, without the communist, Marxist, globalists. Right. But they did it. And there's collective grief and collective guilt, and they want to right or wrong. That's why they're chanting Reza Pahlavi. Even if he's not the best candidate, it's the right thing to do because it rights the wrong and it restores things. And then from there, because I don't think they even will pick him long term. I think they're saying for right now, this moment, this time, this is the person that we believe can lead us.
I think not enough people in our country, especially elected officials and law enforcement, understand the threat of Islam. They don't get it. Now, some of them are starting to catch on. The things that are going on in Texas, which, oh, by the way, the guy down there in Texas, Yasser Qadi, who's setting up that epic city, well, he used to live in Memphis. Okay, we have a huge Islamic influence in Tennessee, and people don't realize it. And everybody seems to think, it can't happen here. Well, not only can we have, violent jihadi attacks like we've already had here, but they are organized politically now in this country. And think about it. The Democrat Party, that is your Marxist and your Muslim party. And there's still they have a lot of power. They're not controlling things. But think about it. Look at our Congress. The GOP has a very slight majority, So for all practical purposes, half our country is already either communist or Marxist.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct. And that's the reality. That's not overstating it. That's not fear mongering. That is the reality. The Democrat Party has been already taken over by the Democrat Socialists of America. They control the Democrat Party. And that's why people like Mamdani now are their poster child, and all these leftists that are getting behind the Marxists. And again, I predict the same thing will happen in this situation that happened in Iran. What happened to the Marxist communists? The Muslims turned on them and killed them and kicked them out. So the same thing will eventually happen once the Muslims take over. But like you said, praise God, number one, that 2 years ago, nobody wanted to talk about this anymore, Dave. Praise God, now we got 40 members of Congress that have the Sharia coalition. Yep. We got Texas starting to wake up. I'm going to be in Texas again next week. I'm going to be in Texas again in April. I'm going to be again in Texas in May. So Texas right now is the battleground. Yep. God is, I think, waking people up. But to your point in Tennessee, we got to wake up in Tennessee. Yasser Qadi, as you said, my friend Brandon House, myself, and others, 2017, we're warning about Yasser Qadi here in the state of Tennessee. And just like you saw in Nashville, right? Guy gets up on a Southwest flight from Nashville, Tennessee, shouting Allah Akbar. We are seeing this, and Congressman Andy Ogles, by the way, is doing a great job of, in my opinion, bringing attention to this.
He is the only one on that anti-Sharia code out of all of our reps and all of our senators. He is the only one. And I'm not a huge Andy fan. I think he does some good and does some bad, but he's the only one that has enough sense to be in that coalition. The rest of them don't have enough sense.
And actually say, this is a nation that must be for those who come here to assimilate and to abide by our laws and not to impose anything else but our laws. If you don't like it, leave. If you don't like it, there's other places to go, and we'll help you pack your bags. So, but when you've already had, Somali Muslims killing people here in Tennessee, when you've had huge enclaves that are forming, like in Memphis and in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, you got Muslims pouring money in, like the guy that gave $3 million to build or they named the school in Cookeville, Tennessee after him, the engineering school there. They call it the Ashraf Islam School of Engineering. Right. This guy is a Pakistani Muslim from Houston. Houston, Texas is now the finance capital for the Islamic movement in America. It's the second largest Muslim population in America beside New York City. Texas is in trouble. So we got to wake up and understand, as you said. And what would be the message of the Iranian people? If I can give a message as an Iranian Christian, I'm an American, but if I can give a message that I can convey from the Iranian people to America, it would be, wake up. We've lived under it for 47 years, and we are now gotten to the point where we've rejected it. 50,000 of the 75,000 mosques in Iran, according to the government in 2024, that was 2024, have shut down. The mosques that are open barely have attendance. The mosque attendance in Iran is down to 7%. 7%. 32%, as I said, only identify as Muslim. They're not just rejecting this regime, they've rejected Islam. And their message to America: stop dancing with Islam, stop going on dates, stop giving it a hug, stop thinking that you can coexist with it. It will not coexist. Rise up, stand up, fight for your country, fight for your person. Don't make our mistake that we made 47 years ago, America. And that's my closing message to anybody that's listening. That's why Iran matters right now, because this has implications for America. It is America first, in my opinion. Although I agree with you, it should have been done differently. But here we are now. We're in it. Finish the job.
From here, we can only. From here, since we've already gone this, we can only make it worse if we do the wrong thing. And all they have to do is stay in power to be successful.
Exactly.
That's all they have to do.
That's all we got to do.
Well, hey, thank you for being with us. And you do have a website that people can check out, Truth and Love Project. Now, do you?
Yeah, well, tilministry.com. That's our website right there on the screen. Visit our website. Whenever we get to have speaking engagements in Tennessee, I hope people in Tennessee can come join us for those speaking engagements there. I hope more can open, and we're working on trying to brief, our mutual friend, Representative Fritz, who's running for governor, who I strongly support his run for governor. That's just my personal plug. We're working on trying to, get something, some information to our legislators about the Islamic movement and what's happening here in Tennessee. So please visit our website, our events calendar, and also we're on Rumble. So if people want to stay in tune there's our Facebook page, there's our Rumble channel. Thank you guys for promoting that. And that is where we try to stay up on all these topics that are going on. The latest things happening biblically, prophetically, politically, spiritually, in Iran, in the United States, with Islam. We try to keep everybody up to speed. So check out our Rumble channel. You can join our Facebook page. And obviously, again, I'm so grateful for you, Dave, and Tennessee Informer. And thank you guys for being able to bring focus on this situation and the people of Iran right now. And of course, I covered prayers. And please also pray for the Christians in Iran, because they have suffered under tremendous hardship and persecution. But they're so bold. They're so empowered by the Spirit of God under immense risk. And I'm excited. Iran, by the way, if it frees, it has the potential to become a Christian nation, and it has the potential to actually send missionaries out like South Korea did.
Wow.
It could become a missionary sending country to the rest of the Middle East if it actually can open up, and there would be true religious freedom. And people like myself have said, we'll go back and visit, we'll take teams, we'll go back and share the gospel openly on the streets of Iran. The moment that door opens, we'll make plans to go. So we pray for that day.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you for being with us. Thank you for what you do. And we'll definitely have you back. I hope we have some good news on this issue here in the near future.
Amen. Amen to that day. Thank you so much.
We appreciate you. And I know it's short notice, so I really appreciate you coming on. Don't go away. I'll be right back with some important legislative updates and other announcements right after this quick message from our sponsor, LifeWave. Check out this amazing product, and we'll be right back.
Light, the energy of life itself. Since the beginning of time, light has sustained us, fueled our growth, and shaped the world. Even Einstein recognized that everything we are is made of light. But what if we could harness the light within us? Not just to live, but to renew, restore, and rejuvenate. Introducing LifeWave X39, the first product in the world that activates stem cells using our body's own light. Backed by clinical research, multiple patents, and over 10 years of stem cell research, a revolutionary wearable light technology that unlocks the power of activating our own stem cells with a single, safe, affordable, non-transdermal patch that puts you back in control of how you look, feel, and perform. Unlike drugs or chemicals, X39 works naturally, awakening your body's ability to heal and thrive. It's time to unlock your full potential, restore your vitality, and embrace a healthier, more vibrant you.
Welcome back. There's a lot going on this week in the General Assembly, and here are just some of the bills you need to be aware of. Now, this one is actually not going to be in this week, but it's so important that I need to remind you about it. It is scheduled for the House next week. And this is House Bill 1971, the companion bill to Senate Bill 1958. I think most of you have heard about it. This is the bill that will end our right to make a facial challenge to the constitutionality of a state law. Currently scheduled for the 18th in the House Judiciary Committee. So, hey, don't wait till next week. Start making calls on this one this week. There's no word yet. I didn't see anything on the updates about when SB 1958 will either go to the floor or back to the committee. But I wanted to remind everybody about that one. Senate Bill 2214 by Wally and House Bill 2611 by Halsey. This bill changes the current UCC, that's Uniform Commercial Code in Tennessee, to protect the individual investor, not the big banks. Key language to understand here. If a securities intermediary does not have sufficient interest in a particular financial asset, and the intermediary, think of that as like your bank, who you've invested something with, a particular financial asset to satisfy both its obligations to entitlement holders, that's what they call you as an entitlement holder instead of an owner, who have security entitlements to that financial asset, and its obligation to a creditor, think of a bigger bank of the securities intermediary who has a security interest in that financial asset, then the claims of the entitlement holders other than the creditor have priority over the claim of the creditor. So basically, this is protecting you, the investor. Look up The Great Taking by David Rogers Webb, or find the old episode we did on the Tennessee Informer titled The Great Taking. And 2214 is on the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee calendar for tomorrow. House Bill 2611 is on the subcommittee calendar, the Banking and Consumer Affairs, the Banking and Consumer Affairs Subcommittee for Wednesday. And let's see here. Okay, House Bill 0562 by Representative Fritz. This is a non-essential bill. If you remember back during COVID when Bill Lee decided, some people's jobs are just non-essential, so they're just going to have to suck it up. Well, this bill reverses this. This bill makes sure that that cannot happen again. It's on the Judiciary Committee for this Wednesday. Hey, the governor has fought this tooth and nail. He wasn't satisfied with just deeming your job, what was the term again? Oh, good Lord, non-essential. He wasn't satisfied with just doing that once. He wants to fight and make sure that if there's another emergency, he can do it again. So just keep that in mind. And this bill, actually the good language on it is it prohibits a person, political subdivision, or public official in connection with a state emergency from categorizing or proclaiming by order, rule, or regulation that a lawful occupation is non-essential, or otherwise proclaiming by order, rule, or regulation that a lawful occupation is prohibited from operating based on what the lawful occupation is. Specifies a person harmed by a violation of the prohibition may bring a civil action for actual damages or declaratory relief. And that is House Bill 0652 by Fritz. House Bill 1852 by Fritz. This has to do with health care, enacts the Tennessee mRNA Pharmaceutical Sovereignty and Safety Act, which prohibits individuals, including professional providers of health care and veterinary medicine, from administering any vaccine or other injectable solution that contains an mRNA vaccine or vaccine material. It's on the Population Health Subcommittee for tomorrow. Yeah, we had a show about this just last week. And Senate Bill 1767 by Senator Bowling on the same topic, this is a Senate companion bill, is placed on the Senate Health and Welfare Committee for Wednesday. Now, House Bill 2039 by Halsey and Senate Bill 2071 by Watson. This is consumer protection, prohibits a person from requiring another to use programmable money for a transaction, prohibits an issuer of programmable money from denying a transaction based upon certain factors, requires an issuer of programmable money that denies a transaction to provide reasons for the denial to the affected party upon request. Designates violations to be violations of the Consumer Protection Act of 1977 and for other forms of release. It's in the Senate Commerce and Labor Committee for tomorrow, and it's on the Banking and Consumer Affairs Subcommittee for Wednesday. House Bill 2610, also by Halsey. It's on the Public Service Subcommittee for Wednesday. And hold on just a second. Oh, 26. All right. Okay, this is 2610. Okay, this is the nullification process bill. Okay, this is the bill that started a few years ago, basically that it creates 5 different processes for the state and entities within the state to challenge a federal law or rule as unconstitutional, and basically would allow, through this process, for it to be nullified. It's not it basically lays out the process. There's a few different ways it can be done. Guys, we got to have this. The federal government just passes all this garbage, and our state way too often just says, yes, sir, 3 bags full. And the title of this bill is Restoring State Sovereignty Through the Nullification Act. And once again, it establishes processes. There's a few different processes that you can challenge, whether it be a federal statute, a regulation, an agency order, or even an executive order. And that's House Bill 2610. House Bill 0999, this has to do with election law. This is by Barrett. Requires all ballots cast in an election to have a secure watermark. Requires official tabulation count of a ballot scanner to be based on the text or machine marked portion of a ballot. Makes certain other changes related to ballots and elections, and creates a program for the scanning and auditing of ballots. It is on the Elections and Campaign Finance Committee Subcommittee for tomorrow. House Bill 2304, also an election law. By the way, all the election laws, you can go to TennesseeFairElections.org, and they have more details. I'm just kind of reading you off a quick summary, but all of them that Tennessee Fair Elections has been pushing are in committee this week. All right, so 2304 repeals convenience voting, provides requirements for satellite voting locations during early voting, and it is on the Elections and Campaign Finance Subcommittee for tomorrow. House Bill 1897 requires each county election commission to check each applicant with the Systematic Alien Verification Entitlements Program database, also known as SAVE, prior to placing a registrant on the voter rolls in order to ensure that non-United States citizens are not registered to vote in the county. Requires at least once each quarter, the county election commission to check the county's voter registration list through the SAVE program database to ensure that only U.S. citizens are voting. And that will be in the Elections and Campaign Finance Subcommittee for Wednesday. House Bill 0851, another election law, makes changes to the process for voting absentee under the Federal Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act, placed on the State and Local Government Committee for Wednesday. A couple of education bills. House Bill 1729, and this is by Slater. All right, this allows student performance on the classic learning test to be used alongside the ACT and SAT for various purposes, makes various changes to homeschool testing requirements and opportunities available to homeschool students. Now, this is on the Education Committee for tomorrow. Now, here we talked about this bill when Tiffany Boyd was on last weekend, actually when we had Claiborne Thornton on a couple of weeks ago. Now, if you look on the site, this bill said recommended for passage if amended. The amendment is not on the site yet, okay? So I would have thought that based on that language, that amendment would have already been introduced to committee. So I'm not quite sure what's going on here. But as I understand, the last time they met, they did not actually introduce this amendment. They referenced it, but they didn't introduce it. So it seems to me like something a little shady is going on there. But I will tell you this, go to Free Your Children, Tiffany Boyd's website. I know she opposes this law as written, and so I would encourage you to go take a look at that. House Bill 1823, local education agencies, as introduced, requires a director of schools to refer a juvenile court a student who has formerly enrolled. All right, this is basically the truancy deal that we talked about, and this, it would take away the ability of a parent to put their kid who maybe is having problems in homeschool, ultimately would leave the decision to a local judge if you're in a truancy, a certain level of truancy, but that level of truancy, habitual truancy, could be as low, it would vary with the LEA, it could be 5, could be 3. It's another one of those things where they're basically trying to override the parents, the authority of the parents. So that's something you're going to want to oppose. It's an education committee tomorrow. And let's see, okay, there's a lot of other important bills in the GA this week. I've got actually a few handwritten notes that I need to go over real quick. House Bill 1737 by Representative Fritz. This is in criminal justice sub on the 11th. This removes the intent to go armed clause and also removes offenses for possessing or carrying a gun in a park, playground, civic center, or other public rec areas. House Bill 2514, also by Fritz. It's essentially a campus carry bill, and that's in the criminal justice sub on Wednesday. So we're trying to expand our Second Amendment rights, or Section 26 of our state constitution. House Bill 2098 by Warner. This creates a whistle. Essentially, this lays out a process for state employees to report potential crimes that they may have witnessed, or basically a way for them to report problems and concerns or potential crimes that they see in their office, in their daily work. And that'll be in the let's see, that's going to be in the subcommittee on Wednesday, Public Service Subcommittee on Wednesday, and then House Bill 2532. House Bill 2532 is the expansion of the vouchers. So they want to spend even more of our money on vouchers, okay? The vouchers are unconstitutional, but they want to spend even more. This bill's carried by Lamberth. And it's funny, too, because it's going to be in the K through 12 subcommittee tomorrow. And tomorrow happens to be the last day that anybody could pick up a petition to run in a state race. So tomorrow will be the last day any of these state reps could possibly be challenged challenged for their seat. But this is more wasting of our money. It's another unconstitutional bill. The vouchers are a bad idea. They're ignoring the issue that needs to be addressed, and they're just throwing money at a problem. And we don't need to spend more of this. So, hey, guys, there's a lot of other bills out there. I can't cover everything. If you want more information, so for instance, the nullification bill, anything having to do with state sovereignty, go to tncss.weebly.com. Elections bill information, tnfairelections.org. Tennessee Stands has some great information on different types of bills. Anything firearm related, Tennessee Firearm Association. And also Tennessee Eagle Forum is another good source. Anything education related, you're going to want to go to freeyourchildren.com for more information on pending legislation. Hey, I want to thank the audience for taking time to watch our program tonight. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, so please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons as well as the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. We hope to hit the 1,000 subscribers mark here pretty soon. We didn't make it at the end of February, but I think we're 60 some away. So please, if you haven't, subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. Share us with your friends. Check out our audio podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other platforms as well. Sign up for our newsletter at our website, tninformer.com. Find and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Got a couple of announcements here. Monty Fritz will be speaking to the Overton County GOP tomorrow, March 10th at 6:30 p.m. It will be held at the Chamber of Commerce, 222 East Main Street in Livingston, Tennessee. He will also be speaking with the Fentress Republican Party at the Jamestown Community Center on Thursday, March 12th at 6 p.m. That is at 629 Main Street in Jamestown. And Pickett County, Thursday, March 19th, 6 p.m. at the Country Kitchen at 120 Noah Drive in Byrdstown. If you live nearby and haven't heard Monty speak, here's your opportunity to get to know him and his platform. Guys, I went to an event Saturday in Robertson County where Monty spoke. I'm just telling you, if you have not heard him speak, you need to get out there and hear him. And even if you have already heard him and are behind him and his campaign, come out and show your support. Saturday, March 21st in Sparta, Tennessee, the constitutional attorney Jeff Cobble will be speaking at 1 p.m. He'll be presenting how the 14th, 16th, and 17th Amendments, and the 14th Amendment specifically, is a portal to the abyss, as well as other topics. And boy, that's a pretty good description with those amendments and the way they've been played out and really abused in many ways. The promises, this should be an incredibly insightful afternoon. RSVP by calling 931-316-9639. That's 931-316-9639. The event will take place in the Old Church at 100 North Main Street in Sparta. And okay, we got one last one here. The Stewart-Henry County chapter of the Tennessee Fire Association will meet for a special event Tuesday, March 31st, 7 p.m. at the Stewart County Visitor Center, 117 Visitor Center Lane, off Donaldson Parkway, also known as Highway 79, in Dover, Tennessee. Our featured speaker is Tiffany Webb, former tenured public school teacher, founder of Free Your Children, which seeks to equip citizens to defend parental and educational rights through Christian discipleship and constitutional advocacy. She's an education consultant, podcast host, and education researcher. She is a monthly contributor to the Murfreesboro Pulse. Her work has been featured in the Daily Wire, Liberty Sentinel, WorldNet Daily, the WSMV Nashville News, the Christian Post, and the Blaze. Membership is not required to attend. All are welcome. That's the Stewart-Henry chapter. The Stewart and Henry chapter of the Tennessee Firearms Association. Join us next Monday, March 16th, 7 p.m., when our guest will be Perry Keenan, who is running for the House seat in District 78. We had his opponent on a couple of weeks ago, John Llewellyn, so tune in and see what Perry's got to say. Take the time also to check out our other shows brought to you by West Tennessee TV. Go to westtennesseetv.com or My Paris TV. You can find links to the Mike Weatherford Show and Sportscasts with Jeremy Bucklew. Tomorrow on the Mike Weatherford Show, Mike welcomes Anthony Wallace and Brad Dublin talking about how Demolition Derby has changed since Mike was involved. Should be a great show. Also, next Sunday on Sportscast, Jeremy and the crew discussed March Madness, predicting the Final Four. If you're a basketball fan, this is the show for you. That's it for now. Good night from Paris, Tennessee, that is.